Tonight on America's Dumbest Criminals, this surveillance video of thieves in action proves it isn't just the escalator that's going down. This hidden camera shows that more than bears go rummaging in the woods. This guy, known as Diaper Boy, left cards saying that he needed a spanking, but the police thought he needed tougher discipline. Strange but true, and all coming right at you, right now on America's Dumbest Criminals.
Delta 1566, give me a call on your primary.
Now, welcome your host for America's Dumbest Criminals, Daniel Butler and Debbie Allen.
You know, every once in a while, we receive something here at the show that's really worth passing along to our viewers.
A historian at the Fort Smith National Historic Site in Fort Smith, Arkansas, sent us a list of bad guys who were left high and dry by a hanging judge known as Judge Parker.
Now, we'd like to pass along the names of a few of these mangy varmints done in by the hard-nosed judge. There was Arkansas Bill, Big Bill, Chickasaw Bill, Muskie Bill, Sugar Bill, Hurricane Bill, Whiskey Bill, and President Bill. No, wait. No, ignore the last one. I'm sorry, just slip.
Hey, bigs were big back in the late 1800s as well. Big Hill Joe, Big John, Big Potatoes, Big Feather, Big Foot, Big Road, Big Head, Big Mouth, and even 3 different Big Chews.
Big Chew. And my personal favorites, Buffalo Chips, Dirt Pot, and Mud Eater. This is true. Can you imagine roll call at the volunteer fire department that way?
Or place cards at formal dinners.
Now, if your name's Dirt Pot, I don't think you get invited to a lot of formal dinners, Debbie.
You're probably right.
Okay.
We're going to learn more about this judge who did his part to tame the Wild West a little bit later. But right now, we're headed to South Florida.
Now, the teenagers in our first video probably had colorful names, too, but their bravado of robbing this department store probably faded a bit when they learned they'd been recorded in black and white.
Here they are, caught on camera. Sure, it looks like a carefree night at the mall, but this energetic gang is carrying out pricey designer clothes by the armful, with no signs of sticker shock. And even though these crooks were young, officers believe that they were old pros when it came to carrying out their mission.
Sure, they knew they were doing, and they'd done it before. We're not sure, what group they're affiliated with and how many others they've done.
Before hitting the store, they'd gone car shopping. They found 3 cars rented by tourists staying at local motels and helped themselves. In fact, they used golf clubs found in the trunk of one vehicle to smash the department store's window.
Some evidence from the scene was found in the cars that were recovered, including some sales tickets from the actual merchandise that was stolen.
For all their enthusiasm here, that shopper's high vanished quickly when police caught up with them. And since they didn't pay for the clothes, they get to pay for their deeds. Well, we don't have video of our next crook, but he was kind enough to leave his card at the scene of the crime.
Now, you've heard of a get-out-of-jail-free card? Well, this is just like that, only completely the opposite.
What do you mean by that?
Well, go to jail, free.
It's just a little something to remember me by.
I was working detective division, and during that time we'd had a lot of auto burgs where people were getting into cars, stealing stereos, knives, wallets, calculators, cell phones, things like that. And we never could find a suspect on it. Then after we'd had a bunch of these going on for months and months, I got a call from one of the victims that said that he had something in the car he wanted me to look at. And so I went up to his place there to see what he had, and when I got up there, he had this piece of paper. So I opened the piece of paper up. It was a court notice where a guy had been to court, and the court had given him this paper, and apparently he had dropped it in the car. So in the meantime, I called the guy in, asked him about it, and he denied it, and denied it, and denied it. I opened up the piece of paper, placed it before him. He looked at it and went, "Oh, geez." And, he had this real dumb look on his face, and I'm sure he realized that how stupid he was for leaving the paper behind.
Courage is a dangerous thing, but to a bum-fuzzled criminal, it's like playing Russian roulette with yourself.
Yeah, see what happens when one such fella comes up against a very sharp officer. It's a meeting of the minds, except, well, one party showed up empty-headed.
Sort of like us.
I'm originally from Houston, and I was working in San Diego, and I saw a truck speeding down the roadway, pulled it over, and the driver had a real strong odor of alcohol in his breath, so I get him over and started talking to him. Well, he's from Texas. He's driving a car with the license plates that say California, but he's in the Navy. So I asked him, well, how much you had to drink? And the guy says, I haven't had anything to drink, officer. And I go, yeah, right. So I looked at his license, and I realized that I know where the guy lived. He lives right a couple blocks from where I used to live. So I looked at him real close in the face, and I said, you know, Principal Lomax said Sam Rabin wouldn't appreciate you lying to me. The guy's eyes get real big, and he says, how did you know that? I said, I know everything. He says, oh, okay, I've had 6 beers.
Hey, check out this dumb law. Brewerton, Alabama forbids the driving of motorboats on city streets.
I wonder if that would include the barges that little old men in my neighborhood drive. Well, if a parking meter is for parking, what do you think a speedometer would be for? The guy holding the ticket in our next story has the answer. It's tonight's winning entry in America's dumbest excuses.
Remember one day I was working traffic enforcement on the highway, and I stopped a lady for speeding at about 70 miles an hour in a 45-mile-an-hour zone. And I contacted her. I said, ma'am, the reason I'm stopping you is you were speeding 70 and a 45. And she says, you know, officer, it's the funniest thing. She says, my speedometer only works when I'm speeding. My speedometer only works when I'm speeding.
Buy her explanation, Daniel?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I've lived her explanation. There's nothing quite like getting away from the crime and craziness of the city. That opens up the door for you to experience the crime and craziness of the country. That's what a number of weekend warriors discovered when they arrived to find someone had been in their cabins. And it wasn't Goldilocks either. To find out just who was the culprit, one enterprising homeowner set up a video camera triggered by a motion detector. Bingo! He bagged himself a bungalow bandit. See for yourself.
Burglars beware. Cameras aren't just for convenience stores and banks anymore. Even a summer cottage can be a high-tech trap when you're dealing with a video-savvy owner.
Cameras triggered by infrared sensors, like the ones that set off your flood lamps. We've went in and reworked them so they work 24 hours a day, even if the daylight's out, and that triggers the camera by motion, and they start rolling.
The owner even did his own detective work, finding a name for this face before turning the evidence over to police.
Anytime someone would take the initiative to prevent the crime themselves or to help us out, especially with the video of the guy, we appreciate that very much. You know, we think it's great that he had the incentive to do this and let us have the tape.
Now, this bad guy has his own vacation home with a door he can't break down.
What do you do if you need to flush out a suspect and you don't have time to call out the hounds? Well, you take this approach, which proved equally effective.
I had the opportunity to meet 2 kind of dumb burglary suspects one night when I was patrolling on midnight shift. The corporal that was on the ship at that time stopped this guy walking down the road, and I was en route to back him up. And when I got there, he told me a car just a few seconds before that had wheeled around and went back the other direction. I proceeded to try to catch up with the guy and instantly got in a high-speed chase with the guy. I chased him about a mile, and he bailed out in this real remote area. When he bailed out, I wasn't about to go in the woods after him at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's real thick. Within a few minutes, the other officers got there, and I hollered back to the corporal, "Corporal, bring me that dog." We don't have an attack dog. He hollered back to the Officer Landon and said, "Officer Landon, get that dog out of my car and bring him here." We all hollering back and forth and everything. And Officer Landon said, "No, I ain't getting that dog. That dog bit me last week. I ain't messing with him no more." And Corporal Parker said, "All right, I'll get him." And then he started making noises like a dog and everything, getting the dog out. And I'm at the edge of the woods, and I hear rustling coming toward me. So I draw down on him, and here I see this black male walking toward me with his hands up. And he's got a real scared look on his face, and he's saying, "Oh, please don't put the dog on me, sir. Please don't put the dog. I'll do anything. Please don't put that dog on me." So I ordered him to get down. We handcuffed him and everything. And subsequently, we found out that he'd been bitten by dogs before, and he was real scared of dogs.
A tough-minded judge brings Judgment Day to bad guys in the old Wild West. But now with news that makes mountains out of molehills, here's Daniel with ADC headlines.
While investigating a car burglary at a motel in Monteagle, Tennessee, Officer Virgil McNeese found a black hat left behind by the criminal. Upon returning to the police station, he tossed the hat on top of the evidence locker. Short time later, a man arrived to pay a fine and said, "Hey, Virgil, where'd you find my hat?" Realizing he'd let the cat in the hat out of the bag, he backpedaled saying, "Wait, was this used in a crime? Wait, this ain't my hat?" Too late, his admission capped off his crime spree. A woman burst into the Zip Trip convenience store in Hawkeye and demanded cash. The none too accommodating clerk would only fork her over $40 and told the robber not to point the gun in her face. Well, the crook then went to the restroom in the market, giving the clerk the opportunity to bar her in with a broom against the door. Though she did break free before police arrived, she was captured soon after. Okay. In a New Mexico restaurant, a woman became irate because the burrito that she had ordered was not to her liking. She refused to pay, complained loudly, and left. She later returned and threw the burrito at a waitress, hitting her in the back of the head. Reports say, quote, "The missile was hurled in a rude and insolent manner." So a complaint was filed against the woman. But you know, that's funny. Normally, after a burrito, rude and insolent things happen, you know, but anyway, that closes the file on ADC Headline News, ripped from somewhere near the back of your local newspaper. Debbie?
Daniel. Clark Kent went to great lengths to keep people from discovering he was really Superman, right? How far should you go to keep the world from knowing that your secret identity is Diaper Boy? The answer, a lot farther than this guy went. He even passed out cards to spread the word. But in time, Diaper Boy chafed enough people and officers moved in and toddled him off to jail. Here's his more than a little bit strange story.
He had shorts, and the shirt said Diaper Boy on the shirt.
Meet Diaper Boy. He'll even give you his calling card in hopes of getting a good spanking. This convenience store clerk got 2 cards.
The second time he came back, he handed me another card, made some comments about his rubber pants and do I want to change his diapers, and I was just like, okay.
Neighbors had no idea the boy next door liked Pampers.
I'm still kind of shocked. I mean, I've lived here for over 4 years, and to know that someone like that lives nearby is kind of scary.
It seems none of the neighborhood moms wants to take care of Diaper Boy.
Sorry.
Okay, now we encounter a prostitute who is so anxious to drum up business that she fails to heed the undercover officer's warning. When she keeps banging away, he lowers the boom. It's yet another case of this self-arrest in a saga we call I'm Where? You're Who?
I'm Mike Wells. I'm a captain with the Weber County Sheriff's Office. We're out of Ogden, Utah. I just got off work. I'd been working plain clothes. I was in an unmarked car. But I had all of my police stuff, you know, Kojak light, red light, radio, badge, handcuffs, and all that stuff laying on the seat beside of me. I was tired. I was heading home when I saw a gal flagging me down in one of the lower streets in Ogden. Well, I pulled over, and she came around to the driver's window. As she stood there, she asked me if I wanted to go have some fun. And I told her, well, yeah, I probably would. How much is it going to cost me? She says, well, $50. I told her, okay, and she says, well, are you a cop? And I said, well, yeah. And she says, no, really, are you a cop? And I said, yeah, really I am. She says, no, now really, are you a cop? I said, yes, I am a cop. I really wanted to go home. I wasn't ready for this. And she says, no, seriously, are you a cop? And I says, seriously, I am a cop. She didn't say anything. She came around, and as she was coming around, I hurried and scooped everything off onto the floor. And when she got in the car, she says, okay. And I handed her the $50. Okay, all righty, you're under arrest. And started the car, and we drove around the block, took a couple lefts, and pulled right into the bay of the jail, and I booked her for prostitution. I can't believe she didn't see all of the police stuff that was on the floor and in the back seat, but she either didn't or she really was one of the dumbest criminals I've ever seen.
So he was really a cop, huh? Well, his name was Judge Parker, and he provided the local undertaker with a thriving business of dying customers. Nobody in the Old West back in the late 1800s dispensed with more dumb criminals. Here's a little history lesson, ADC style.
We're at Fort Smith National Historic Site, and Fort Smith is known for the federal court for the Western District of Arkansas, whose most famous jurist was Judge Isaac C. Parker. Parker served between 1875 and 1896, and it was known as the hanging judge because under him 160 people were sentenced to hang. 79 of those were actually executed here in Fort Smith. It starts off in November of 1874 when a dead body is found in the Creek Nation in Indian Territory. It's a young man, about 19 years old, with a bullet through his head and no shoes or boots on, barefooted. Witnesses in the vicinity testify that they saw this young man and another man traveling around together, and that this young man was wearing boots with high heels and fancy tops. A few days after this, they arrest another man, Daniel Evans, who's wearing boots that match this description. Taken back to Fort Smith, where the federal court is held, and try to have a murder trial and convict the man in December of 1874. Ends up in a hung jury. Wait a couple of months, retry him in May of 1875, and this is one of the first murder trials under Judge Parker. First day of testimony opens, government doesn't have any new witnesses, any new evidence at all. Go through the whole day, and that night, a man comes up to the district attorney and says, "I'm the father of the murdered boy, the victim, and I'd like to tell you something about these boots." He goes on to tell about the boots being purchased for his son shortly before he left Texas, but his son had to do some repair work on them, namely putting on the left boot heel back on after it had fallen off with 3 horseshoe nails. District attorney is thrilled. Next day in court, puts him on the stand. The man tells the same story, and at that point, the district attorney calls the defendant, Daniel Evans, before the jury, asks him to hold up his left foot so the jury can see it, and lo and behold, he's wearing boots with high heels and fancy tops, and there's 3 horseshoe nails in the heel. This time, they end up with a guilty verdict, largely because Daniel Evans ended up wearing his victim's boots into court.
Does a poacher become a thief? Well, this tale of pilfering makes it hard to know.
A man is seen dragging a deer across a road. A little unusual, but not unheard of. But this was no game to the people involved.
Listen as the officer details where the buck stops in tonight's trophy-winning episode of We're Not Making This Up.
One night on midnight shift, about 11:30 at night, my partner and I were driving down a street, and we saw this man dragging something across the road. He looked up and saw us and ran, and we found out it was a deer. We backtracked afterwards to find out the owner of the animal and where the animal had come from, and he had walked up and cut the deer down off the porch and then used the man's own dragging rope to take the deer. We caught the individual and brought him back and arrested him for the larceny of the deer. The street that we caught him on was Fawn Street.
Well, that's it for tonight, but there's more dumb to come next week.
Before we say goodbye, we want to say thanks to all the law enforcement officers on tonight's show.
And a great big thank you for watching the show tonight.
We appreciate the fine work done by police officers here at home and beyond. To infinity and beyond. Can you do that?
Just wrap it up.
And we appreciate you tuning in to watch the show.
And if you've got a lead on a story or you just can't wait till next week for more state-of-the-art stupidity, visit our website at www.dumbcrimes.com.
As always, we hope that we've all learned from others' mistakes.
But if you still haven't, we just might see you next week on America's Dumbest Criminals.
Bye-bye.